By First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM. And in the studio with me this morning is Dan McGregor, member of the former member and former vice president and president of the Blairsville-Saltsburg School Board. Educational Consulting Services is his company, and he is very much involved in the deconsolidation movement in the Blairsville-Saltsburg School District. On the telephone with us is Nicholas Pantalone, and he as well has become involved in this, and I assume, Mr. McGregor, at your behest?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about this issue, and first say good morning to Nicholas Pantalone. Good morning to you.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
It's our pleasure to have you on the air with us. Dan, let's talk a little bit about deconsolidation and some of the issues that have brought this discussion to this point today.
Okay. I can tell you, Todd, that the issue for me and for others began about 18 years ago, literally. My, how time flies when you're having fun. But 18 years ago, when I was first elected to the school board representing Region 2 of Saltsburg, I was approached by a newly elected Blairsville board member who said, I want to have an ethical relationship with you, and so I'm going to tell you that there's a group of business people who have been meeting and talking about the viability of consolidating the school system, bringing the Saltsburg schools to Blairsville, not taking care of needed repairs. We had drastic, dire circumstances in Saltsburg. The roof was leaking in the elementary. There was asbestos tile on the floor and asbestos coating the pipes. The boiler was 50 years old and needed to be replaced. They patched it. We called it patches because it had so many patches on it. But at that time, we'd made the request 18 years ago when I first came on the board to update our facilities. And so I started to generate that discussion as a newly elected board member asking for those needed repairs. And at that time, a colleague from Blairsville, who shall remain nameless, I've kept confidence with him, that not to mention his name, but he's certainly a man of integrity, said, I want to have a good working relationship with you, and I would like to apprise you of the fact that there's the possibility of consolidation, and I'm going to have to vote for that. But I think that you have the right to know that. I came back to a board meeting and I said to my colleagues on the board, I understand you're going to consolidate and close our schools. And there was two-year period of denial and a refusal to disclose the actual plans as they were being formulated to close Saltsburg schools and to move everybody to Blairsville. But eventually, truth will out, and it was disclosed. So for the last 18 years, we have been fighting to maintain our independence, our own viability, our own independence as a community, first and foremost. When you take the school out, the community dies. There's so much of a history around us that proves that to be the case. So for 18 years, every election cycle, and this will be no different. There's members from Saltsburg up for re-election or replacement, as there is in Blairsville. Right now, the vote was unanimous to separate. We've all had enough of this constant battle and bad blood between the communities.
And yet, even with that vote, there remains an issue with some of the numbers that are floating around, the economic impact, the educational impact of separating into a separate Saltsburg School District and Blairsville School District. Nicholas, of course, on the telephone with us. He has a very intimate knowledge of what some of those issues are. Nicholas, can you weigh in on this?
Yeah, Todd, it's been really confusing for the citizens and the community. I talk to people and they say, we're consolidating, we're losing money, we need to save $2.1 million, and then I talk to people and they say, well, wait, now we're separating, we could afford it, what's the real story? That, no one really understands what the situation really is. And, luckily I've been privileged to have a knowledge in what the business manager was doing with the school. And 3 years ago I stepped in, I got involved using my CPA and financial background, and after meeting with the business manager, I found that the school had $13 million in the bank saved away over the past few years. They've been really fiscally responsible, and they really didn't need to consolidate. And so that's where this recent battle started, by sharing with the public that the school is doing very well, actually. And so after fighting that consolidation, that initial consolidation, Dan and I and the Petrarca Committee, we got together and put together a separation plan, which really went through every line item of the school's budget and said, this is how it can work for Saltsburg to separate from the district, and for Saltsburg to be able to survive without increasing taxes or additional state funding by just managing its costs. I mean, someone this weekend actually just made a good point. Back in the 60s, we were standalone and we were able to do it. Why can't we now?
Dan, the recent report,
Yes.
State Education Department taking a look at this whole issue as well, coming down on the negative side of splitting the school district into two. But you, from the Saltsburg angle, you folks have said that they didn't really do the job with that report that they should have. They disregarded?
Absolutely. In fact, they went a complete 360 degrees on the way the report was supposed to be formulated. Our committee had met numerous times with, of course, Representative Joe Petrarca, who's our state representative from the Saltsburg end of the district, and the Honorable Senator Don White, Dave Reed, the Honorable Reed, Speaker or Majority Leader of the House, and Jeff Powell, neighboring representative. We'd met on numerous occasions, and they assured us that they had faith in our decision, that philosophically they understood our position, they were in tune with it, they wanted to see the problem end for both Blairsville and Saltsburg. It had gone on far too long, over 50-some years of actual feuding and fighting and just an unwillingness to get along. So they were looking for a solution there, but they wanted to be assured that it was financially viable. They looked at Nicholas's figures. The Pennsylvania Economy League had looked at Nicholas's figures, our figures, and concluded that they were, in fact, supportable, reasonable, and Saltsburg could stand alone. But Representative Reed wanted to have an independent study at a higher level done to determine not just the affordability, but the sustainability. How long, how many years out, protracted years, could the district stand alone? He didn't want, legitimately, he didn't want us coming back to the legislature 5 years later and saying, we were able to do it for 5 years, but now we're broke and we need to consolidate again. It was a legitimate request. But what he assured us is that our blueprint, our initial figures, would be the starting point. Mm-hmm. And that Mr. Pantalone and the members of the committee would be consulted, asked to explain their conclusions and assumptions, and how they reached the point that Saltsburg and Blairsville could stand alone, and that they wouldn't reinvent the wheel. But we think political forces kicked in, not from the gentleman that I just mentioned, but in Harrisburg, the seat of government. You have a Democratic governor who's very legitimately pro-union. I'm a Democrat. I'm pro-union too, a former union member myself. But in Harrisburg, those folks reached a different conclusion and took a different direction. They actually outsourced the study to an outfit in Florida. So the study that cost $50,000 went primarily to the Floridians, to their agency that did the study. And they disregarded practically, if not all, of Nicholas's and our committee's conclusions. And they reinvented the wheel by using the same documents, the same strategy, the same questionnaires that Pennsylvania used to consolidate districts. So it was almost a foregone conclusion. If you're going to use that approach that focuses on how to consolidate schools, how are you going to reach a conclusion that deconsolidation is viable? They used the wrong tool. Mm-hmm. They took the wrong direction. They broke faith with us. We were never contacted. We were never involved. We have no proof that any of Nicholas's figures were any coordination to compare and contrast, to ask us how we reached our conclusions. We're not sure how they reached their conclusions, to be totally honest with you. And when I mentioned the union aspect of it, unfortunately, the Teachers Association and support personnel in the Blairsville-Saltsburg area didn't approach us, and for the last 2 years have never attended any of our meetings or have never taken part in any of our discussions or deliberations or provided their concerns and questions. And and that's somewhat alarming. They took PDE in Harrisburg combined with PSEA in Harrisburg, formulated an opposition to a plan that, quite frankly, called for no cuts in teaching staff, no realignment in students, no changes in bus routes, no changes in curriculum. Nicholas was able to find cost savings that allowed the district to separate our assets, share the debt in a fair and equitable manner based on square footage of buildings. And we were in a position to do that. But again, the forces in Harrisburg somehow combined. I call it either the perfect storm, mutually beneficial, or collusion. And one can draw their own conclusions from that. But those two entities got together. And Todd, let me hasten to say this. In the 18 years that I've been a part of this process, and a member of the school board, I hired many of the teachers that we're talking about. I have great faith in them. I have nothing but high regard. I'm a former principal, I'm a former teacher, and I was a principal in Blairsville for 5 years. Nothing but the highest regard and respect for the profession and what they do for our kids. There's a survey called the Great, anybody can go online and look at the Great Schools Survey. It assesses all the schools in Pennsylvania. Saltsburg High School is rated an 8 out of 10. I'm sorry, the elementary school is rated an 8 out of 10, and the high school is a 6 out of 10, which is a pretty good standing across the state. So our teachers are doing the job, but here's the problem. For 18 years, they stayed neutral. They never got involved in the original battle to not consolidate, but to stay status quo. They never took a position. All of a sudden, they're involved on the separation issue. And yet I have to ask why. Why now? Why not? Here's where they should have been voicing their concern. To Blairsville. Blairsville people, give us a guarantee that you're not going to consolidate. Leave Saltsburg and Blairsville alone. Their fight's not with the Petrarca Committee. Their fight's with the Blairsville board members who now have the majority again and are in a position to say no to separation and say yes to consolidation, depending upon the outcome of this election. The bottom line is their fight is not with Saltsburg. Their fight's with Blairsville. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that want to absorb Saltsburg. Saltsburg doesn't want to absorb Blairsville. We had the majority at one time and could have done that. We didn't do that.
Dan McGregor with us. Nicholas Pantalone is on the telephone. We're extending this conversation past a deadline here because it's such an important one, but we're going to have to wrap it up soon. And we obviously could go on for much longer. Nicholas, focus always gets sharper with the passage of time. You're, I assume, more comfortable now than you ever have been with the figures that you provided?
Definitely, Todd. You know, when I started this, it was just to fight the consolidation, showing what we have. Then we moved on to, the first year, what separation would look like. And now we've got a longevity plan, a 5+ year plan. Things are looking good. If we were able to separate, I've had scenarios where there's even been the possibility of lowering the property taxes 3 years out.
Well, it sounds like you're very confident in the viability of a separate Saltsburg district from Blairsville. Dan, I know you are as well.
Yes. Let me stress this, though. Joe Petrarca, in his infinite wisdom, has asked us constantly, why can't there be an arrangement for status quo? The district is solvent. We haven't raised taxes in 10 years, 8 to 10 years. We have $13 million in the bank. Taxes are looking better for Saltsburg in terms of the reassessment. Saltsburg will get more taxes as a result of that. Why not status quo? The Petrarca Committee would like nothing more than a guarantee in some form that would result in not having to separate or consolidate. Maintain business as usual. We're doing fine. Joe Petrarca would like nothing more than to see us maintain status quo. He's not an advocate for all this mayhem and bad feeling and ill will and teachers worrying about jobs, et cetera, and where parents worrying where their kids are going to go to school. Status quo. Let's have mutual respect for each other's community, and we advocate that more than anything. But I say this: we're not in favor in any way, shape, or form of consolidation or sending our kids down Route 22 to Blairsville to face those hazards as well as an hour on the bus every day. We don't want to do that.
It would be a lot like the Ligonier Valley, Laurel Valley situation all over again. Dan McGregor, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Nicholas Banalone on the telephone, thank you as well.
Thank you, Todd.
It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM.